toll road. An accident's been sitting in the left lane or two past that. 242. 18-wheeler axed. It was like a shifted load, heavy-duty wrecker, crane there. Just a right lane's getting by. It's been working for a couple of hours now. Also, 10 westbound 45. They cleaned up an accident.
Support comes from Mercury Chamber Orchestra, performing all of Bach's Brandenburg concertos in one night on historical instruments that reflect Bach's original intentions. October 11th at the Wortham. More at mercuryhouston.org.
Great day today. Sunshine, but still warm. 90 for the high, 73 for the low tonight. Staying right around 90 all week. And sunshine, 30% chance of some showers for Friday. That's it right now. We're at 75 degrees. It's KUHF Houston News 88.7. The service of the University of Houston, 9 o'clock.
The Houston Astros will miss the playoffs for the first time in 9 years. I'm Craig Cohen. Today on Houston Matters, how much injuries plagued the team this season and what, if anything, the Astros can do to avoid the same fate next year.
Houston Matters with Craig Cohen is a production of Houston Public Media with support from Baylor College of Medicine.
Also this hour, Fort Bend County has a new budget, but it did not come without contention, we discuss. Also ahead, the hosts of Hello Houston drop by to recap their first 6 months on the air. Then, what to do on that glorious day when you receive an unexpected financial windfall. An area financial planner weighs in. Plus, the Houston Texans pull off their first shutout in 15 years. Is this the start of a turnaround or just a momentary rebound in a so far troubling season? We'll start with the news update from NPR and News 88.7. Stay with us.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Windsor Johnston. President Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu are preparing to hold talks at the White House this morning. The two leaders are set to discuss a new U.S. proposal to end the war in Gaza. NPR's Daniel Estrin describes some of the main points of the potential agreement.
It calls on Hamas to release all 48 of its remaining hostages, living and dead, up front. And then it calls for a gradual process where a multinational Arab and Muslim peacekeeping force would enter Gaza and Israeli forces would withdraw. Now, this is a plan that Trump presented to leaders of Arab countries in New York last week. It is the most serious effort yet since Trump entered office to end the war and to chart a post-war future for Gaza.
NPR's Daniel Estrin reporting from Tel Aviv. President Trump told Axios on Sunday that negotiations on a possible peace deal are at their final stages. Missouri has joined Texas in redrawing its congressional maps to give Republicans a better chance in next year's midterm elections. St. Louis Public Radio's Rachel Lippman reports the state's Republican governor signed the bill on Sunday.
The new map breaks up the Kansas City area district of Democrat Emanuel Cleaver into 3. That could give the GOP a chance to win 7 of Missouri's 8 seats, up from the 6 it currently holds. The bill signing was close to the media. The map already faces multiple legal challenges, and there is a possibility it never takes effect. Opponents are already gathering signatures to force a statewide vote. If they are successful, voters would have to approve the new districts. For NPR News, I'm Rachel Lippman in St. Louis.
Stocks on Wall Street opened mixed this morning amid news that a big video game maker is going private. NPR's Scott Horsley reports the Dow Jones Industrial Average fell about 15 points in early trading.
A trio of private equity firms is buying the video game giant Electronic Arts in a deal valued at $55 billion. EA is the company behind popular games like Madden NFL and The Sims. The buyers include Saudi Arabia's public investment fund and Jared Kushner's investment company. Lufthansa says it's adding more than 230 jets to its fleet by the end of the decade to keep up with strong demand for air travel, but the airline also says it plans to cut about 4,000 administrative workers, thanks to efficiency gains tied to artificial intelligence. And 58 million pounds of corn dogs and sausage on a stick are being recalled after complaints the stick was not the only wood piece in the batter. Scott Horsley, NPR News, Washington.
The United States and South Korea are set to hold talks this week about securing visas for skilled Korean workers in the U.S. The meeting comes after more than 300 Koreans were taken into custody at a battery factory in Georgia this month. This is NPR News in Washington.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include 20th Century Studios, with Springsteen, Deliver Me From Nowhere, a pivotal chapter in the life of an icon, starring Jeremy Allen White and Jeremy Strong. In theaters October 24th. Tickets available now.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Matt Harab. Investigators will continue looking into a plane crash that tragically killed 2 people near David Hooks Airport north of Houston in spring yesterday. The final moments of a twin-engine Cessna 340 experiencing some kind of trouble was recounted by DPS Sergeant Richard Standlifer on Sunday.
They developed some type of an issue, mechanical issue. The pilot attempted to turn the plane around. He got fairly low to the runway.
That audio, courtesy of KHOU, video shows the plane crashed wing first, diving the nose into the ground and exploding. The 2 elderly people on board were killed. Meanwhile, life flight was sent to a scene in Liberty County today after a mother attempted to drown her 3 children. Preliminary information there suggests that one of the children was rescued, but the conditions of the other kids unknown at this point. We'll have more when we know it right here on News 88.7. A federal court in El Paso will hear arguments on Wednesday in a lawsuit challenging Texas's mid-decade round of congressional redistricting. Our Andrew Schneider reports.
Republican state lawmakers passed the map in August during a special session under pressure from President Trump and Governor Abbott. Attorneys for the state contend the map is a purely partisan gerrymander designed to maximize Republican gains, but voting rights attorney Chad Dunn, representing the plaintiffs, says the map is an unconstitutional racial gerrymander.
It has been the law for decades, long before even the Voting Rights Act was passed, that a legislature cannot draw districts on the basis of race. And that's exactly what the legislature did here.
The filing period for 2026 Texas congressional candidates begins November 8th and ends December 8th. Plaintiffs are asking for an injunction to block the map from taking effect in time for candidates to meet that deadline, but the long-term aim is to throw the map out entirely. I'm Andrew Schneider, News 88.7.
And the Astros season came to an end over the weekend with the team missing the playoffs for the first time since 2016. The team battled through injuries all year, but first baseman Christian Walker says he does not want to use that as an excuse.
You know, there was some unfortunate injuries and things that happened along the year, but, you know, that's part of it. I think good teams find a way anyway, and we almost did. We were close, but, you know, not good enough.
The Astros ended their season with 87 wins. It's the most games won by any team that did not make the playoffs. I'm Matt Harab, News 88.7.
This is Houston Matters. I'm Craig Cohen. Good morning. Coming up this hour, Hello Houston at 6 months. Protecting a financial windfall, how the Astros can avoid future injury-riddled seasons, and we recap the Texans' big shutout win over the Titans. But first, Fort Bend County Commissioners voted last week to pass a budget for the county's upcoming fiscal year. It comes after weeks of debate over funding for public safety and how much residents will pay in property taxes. Natalie Weber's here from Houston Public Media's Fort Bend County Bureau. Natalie, good morning.
Good morning, Craig.
Harris County just went through its own contentious budget process based largely on a deficit that it needed to close. Have Fort Bend County commissioners faced similar challenges?
So Fort Bend County actually increased its budget this year by about 4%, bringing it to around $760 million. And they held the tax rate steady. But that said, they are expecting an increase in tax revenue because of new properties and an increase in property values. So
Mayor Whitmire seemed to set off a domino effect of jurisdictions having to raise salaries for law enforcement after securing historic raises for law enforcement in the city of Houston, despite a budget deficit there. Was law enforcement in Fort Bend County asking for more money this year as well?
So Sheriff Fagan began asking for raises for deputies earlier this month, pretty late into the county's budgeting process. But he was kind of vague. He, said that he wanted pay to be competitive with agencies like the Houston Police Department and the Harris County Sheriff's Office, and referenced maybe like a 5 to 10% increase. But he kind of kept the door open.
Did he get what he wanted?
So sheriff's deputies specifically did not receive increases in this year's budget, but all county employees will receive a 3% cost of living pay raise.
There was also some contention over property taxes. Who expressed concern and how was that resolved?
Right. So Fort Bend County Judge K.P. George, as well as Commissioner Andy Myers, expressed some concerns about the budget increase, saying we need to tighten our belts. And so Fort Bend County Judge K.P. George voted against the tax rate in the budget, and Commissioner Myers said he would support it, but reluctantly.
You mentioned Judge George. He faces ethics and criminal charges. Can you remind us over what exactly?
Right. So Fort Bend County Judge K.P. George is facing 2 counts of money laundering charges and then a misrepresentation of identity charge. Prosecutors say he worked with a staffer to fake racist attacks against his own campaign and used campaign finance money to pay his property taxes and put a down payment on a home. Did
Judge George's situation impact the politics of Fort Bend County Commissioner's Court and how the budget votes played out?
Judge George switched parties over the summer. After he was charged with money laundering in the spring, he went from the Democratic Party to the GOP. So now Republicans actually hold the majority on the Fort Bend County Commissioner's Court.
It's not just commissioners lined up against George. There are some. A resident of Fort Bend County is seeking Judge George's removal from office. What can you tell us about that lawsuit?
Yes. So a citizen who was removed from Commissioner's Court while speaking during public comment and criticizing the redistricting efforts is suing Judge George, saying that he violated her First Amendment rights. She is seeking his removal from office, citing that, as well as claiming that he is incompetent to hold office because of the criminal charges that he is facing.
Harris County Attorney Christian Menefee has also weighed in on Judge George. Attorney Menefee is also running for Congress. What has he had to say about Judge George, and why is he weighing in on a neighboring county's politics?
Right. So he actually has criticized specifically how Judge George has been interacting with Fort Bend County Attorney Bridget Smith Lawson and is accusing George of trying to sideline her. Now, this comes after Judge George tried to pass a resolution in July to hire an outside general counsel. He also had a resolution on last week's agenda, but pulled it last minute. But it raised concerns from critics that he was trying to replace the county attorney, who is an elected official, with an outside law firm.
Natalie Weber is Houston Public Media's Fort Bend County Bureau Chief. Natalie, thank you so much.
Thank you, Craig.
Up next, 6 months ago this week, Hello Houston debuted here on News 88.7 and on YouTube. How's it going so far? We ask the hosts as Houston Matters continues.
With federal funding cuts, Houston Public Media has lost $2.2 million annually. In response, we have launched the Resiliency Fund, an urgent initiative to protect the programs and services you rely on. That includes PBS Kids, that provides free educational programming to children and families across Greater Houston. Your support of the Resiliency Fund helps keep this vital service accessible to our community. Give now at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
publicmedia.org/donate.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from listeners like you and from Baylor College of Medicine. Through research and innovation, Baylor continues to redefine what's possible in healthcare and medical discovery.
Support comes from Stewart PC, a Houston law firm assisting executives and employers with executive employment agreements, litigating executive compensation and non-compete agreements, and management training. More at attorneysforexecutives.com.
This is Houston Matters. I'm Craig Cohen. This week marks 6 months since Houston Public Media debuted Hello Houston. Our colleagues from that program are here in studio with us now to talk about this first half year on air and what they have planned going forward. Ernie Manouse, Frank Billingsley, Celeste Díaz Schurman. Good morning to you all.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Craig.
Hello, Houston.
It's going to be an interesting next, I don't know how many minutes I'm going to...
It just got shorter.
Yeah.
As we chat, we welcome your questions and comments. For Ernie, Frank, and Celeste, you can call or text 713-440-8870. You can email us at talk@houstonmatters.org. You can also comment on Houston Matters video stream on the Houston Public Media YouTube channel. All right, well, let's just start here. I just kind of wanted to hear your general thoughts on how things are going so far in these first 6 months. Ernie?
Great. I think it's been really, it's interesting because we stepped outside the traditional NPR-ish style show where it was a little bit more, they asked us to bring our opinions on things to it. And that for me was the hardest, was kind of stepping outside of just saying the information I had and kind of giving my take on the information. So that was for me the hardest part, I would say, of doing it. Hopefully I found a way to find that balance.
Yeah, it's fun to ask the people that are listening what they think.
Right.
So
that's easy.
yeah, but the engagement, I think, has almost surprised a lot of us, especially you never know which subject is really going to get the blood going, and it surprises me sometimes when suddenly everybody has an opinion about subject X, whatever that is.
And I would say what's been really surprising for me is that aha moment of, as much as people want our take on things, they also don't want it too much. There's this balance that we're finding where, we are still a news program. And so finding that balance on Hello Houston, like Ernie said, where we're still holding the integrity of what NPR stands for, but also we do have moments where we give our take. And I think that having 3 hosts, we all have and are passionate about certain things. And so we kind of balance each other out on when we want to lean into our take a little bit, or when we feel like, I don't necessarily need to have a take.
It seems to me maybe there is also a line between having a take on something and weighing in officially on public policy. Do you see that there are moments where you're like, okay, well, I'm giving an opinion here, but it's more of an observation based off of my experience versus I think X issue is wrong or something like that.
Frank is more the I think X issue is wrong. Frank's okay if he does. I don't mean to talk. I poke at him all the time. I would say yes. That would be my answer to your question.
Well, you're wrong about that.
Well, it's very funny because we did a remote for the Untitled Art Fair, and Ernie, Frank, and I showed up for the event, and we sat down. We got on YouTube, and immediately our YouTube watchers commented how we were wearing traffic light.
Yeah, I was green.
Green.
You were yellow.
Yellow.
And
Ernie was red. And in some ways, I think that that's where we complement each other on the show, is where I think that given Ernie's long experience and history within public media, he's less likely to have essentially that take. I think that given Frank's experience in commercial media and this new space that he's in, Frank wants to speak his mind and is having this moment for himself in his career. And I think for me, given my background being a producer, where really for a very long time I was behind the scenes, it can feel very vulnerable putting yourself out there and having your take.
So Frank is go. Celeste is caution. And I'm like, stop!
And it was entirely coincidental that we were wearing all those colors. I don't think we've done it since.
No.
Usually we're purple.
Yeah.
Frank, how would you characterize how different things are hosting Hello Houston compared to all the other work that you've done broadcasting over the years?
Well, the only other work I've done is being a TV weatherman. I did college radio, and I did college. We had a PBS show that we went down to Blue Ridge Public. I guess it was public television. Blue Ridge PBS in Roanoke, Virginia, and we would put on a 30-minute news show every Friday, which we just rip and read. We didn't have any video, but we went down there, and so I had my shot at that kind of news approach. But this has been a lot more fun than most anything I've ever done, because they do let me speak my mind when I have something worth saying or think I have something worth saying, and we all get along really well too. So that's nice. It's and I think our listeners are out there. I was all over the place this weekend, and everywhere I went, people said, "Oh, I love listening to you guys on your show." And sometimes they're like, really? When they said that, when I was on Channel 13 and Channel 2, you kind of expect it, because you're the TV weather guy. And so it's never a surprise when someone recognizes you. But when they say, oh, I love your new show, I'm listening to it all the time, it's very heartwarming.
I have a default response. I have to admit, anytime somebody says, oh, I listen to you all the time. Oh, you're the one.
You're the one.
Yeah. Ernie, what has surprised you about this experience so far?
Working with other co-hosts. I mean, the beginning of the television career was always with co-hosts. And it wasn't until the last few years, even like with Manner of Speaking, there was a panel I was with every week. So then with Town Square, it was just me out there all the time. And it's nice to be back with a group of people. And it lifts up some of the work. It makes it easier because, like Celeste has her areas she's passionate about and really has a strong understanding of. Same with Frank. So that it's like, I don't need to know everything about everything. I need to know the stuff I know about. They need to know the stuff they know about, and we can all share with each other. And I've really enjoyed that differentiation.
Yeah, it's a nice challenge
Yeah.
to put yourself in the middle of the news and kind of know, because our subjects sometimes change the minute before we go on if there's breaking news, and there pretty much is every day, as you know. And so being just fluid and the three of us playing off of each other's strengths, I think is what is making this all work.
I, for one, wouldn't mind a little bit less breaking news.
Tell us about that, Craig.
Just we could have everybody slow down just a little bit. I'd be all right with that, I think.
Yeah, the old days.
For
the old days are gone.
But, you have the advantage of you're coming in the morning.
Yeah.
And so pretty much most of the news, except if something broke overnight, but you've had a little time to digest it. We're still a little on the early side. And at 3 o'clock when I used to be on, by that point, whatever was happening that day had happened. And all of a sudden we're like, oh my God, we didn't expect that today. But, the little earlier time, I think, is a little more comfortable. Things may happen while we're on air, which is kind of challenging, too, because you don't know what's going on because we're in here doing this. And so we've got to rely on our producers to feed us what's happening in the world when we're in our little bubble here.
Yeah, and then we have our listeners. We might have a guest on, especially a politician, and our listeners will chime in, and you want to respect their opinion, too. And, sometimes you're the go-between.
Yeah.
So.
This is Houston Matters. I'm Craig Cohen. We're talking with the hosts of Hello Houston, who celebrates 6 months on the air this week. We welcome your questions and comments for Ernie Manouse, Frank Billingsley, and Celeste Díaz Schurman at talk@houstonmatters.org. Call or text 713-440-8870, or share your thoughts on our video stream on Houston Public Media's YouTube channel. In fact, we've got one of those comments. Listener says, Houston, have been listening to your show since day one. Love these folks and their nonpartisan coverage. So there you go.
Yeah.
So you may be sharing your takes, but not necessarily indicating partisanship, at least according to that one listener. So that's a good sign.
You can have educated opinions on what's happening. And we're fortunate we get to talk to so many of the people in the mix. So we know both sides of issues. We've heard different understandings of it. And I think part of our job is to challenge our listeners to re-explore why they believe what they believe. So it may be this one side of an issue, and you may personally fall toward it, but you can understand the other side. And you want people to say, okay, but have you thought about it from this point of view? And so therefore you get to do the mix without really being partisan, but introducing these partisan ideas into the conversation.
Well, and I think, too, none of us is far left or far right. And that's an easy trap to fall into and become partisan if you are extremely one way or the other. Well, I made this point with Celeste one time that, if we go to a foreign country and somebody comes down on America, doesn't like America, we will defend America, even if we don't like some of the things we're hearing about America. That might be true. We're still American. We're still American. So I'm extreme in that regard. But when it comes to being right or left or even in the independent, I'm not extreme about anything. I like to hear the best ideas going forward and try to draw from those what makes sense.
And we're also really trying, our ethos on our show is Hello Houston, where Houston talks. So we are bringing in essentially the headline, right before our show right before Houston Matters. You hear the NPR newscast. You get the local newscast. Right before our show, there's the Texas Standard. So as, a news consumer, somebody, we understand that people have thoughts and they want to unpack some of these thoughts. And as we know, there is a lot of news. It's happening very quickly, and it seems heavy and like there's a lot. And what we have found on Hello Houston is when we open up the conversation and provide a safe space for people to say how they really feel, oftentimes, whether you are on the right or on the left, you're having in some ways the same sentiment. It might be very different, but there are those same themes of concern about policy or, looking at potentially an elected official speaking up and saying, you know what, we can find some commonality within this. And so for us, if we are providing a place where, regardless of where you're coming from, you feel like you can call in and share your perspective, then we're doing our job.
And I would say maybe the key element in all of that is a space where you're not going to get automatically attacked, because there are 1,000 places you can go online to engage with others on issues. But boy, you better have thick skin, because what's coming back at you, no matter what you type, it's
I
going
have
to
one
get
thing
pretty
to
ugly.
say to you about that, Craig. You're wrong, and I don't want to hear that anymore.
I think there's a difference, right, between debate and, a war room type of situation. That there are those shows, and you can go there for that. But when you come to Hello Houston, you know that we're going to respect your thoughts. We want you to respect others as well. And at the end of the day, this is a place where you're safe and you can share.
And people will have handles, some of them, or first names only, but they're still not anonymous. I don't think they feel anonymous, because even if they identify themselves as Craig's best friend, they still have a voice that people are going to recognize, and I think that keeps sort of the behavior in check, if you will. Whereas on some of the platforms like the 1,000 you mentioned, when people are anonymous, they just say what they want, and you don't even know, even if they use a name, you don't know if it's a real name, and so they just come after you from some angle that you have no defense.
We've been using the term listener as we've been discussing, but the reality is we have listeners and we have viewers now for both of our shows. You all jumped out ahead of us about 6 months, and thank you for that. Getting your show up and running on YouTube.
Off the ledge 6 months earlier.
So how has that experience been? Has it influenced what you've been doing with your program each day?
In some way, what I think is more fascinating about it is there's a group that is very loyal that comes on the YouTube channel every day. They know each other now, and they say hello to each other when they log in. And so there's another second community. So we're doing the show for our radio audience. We're doing the show for that YouTube audience that's their own little group. And we also then have the podcast, and then we have the archives of everything we've done. And it's interesting the different pots we're in. I like to say to folks, you can't escape us anymore. You may not choose to listen, but we'll find you.
Well, for one, I was recognized. I've been recognized at the grocery store where somebody's been like, I watch you on YouTube. And I was like, oh my gosh.
Wow. Which one are you?
Yeah, like, okay, wow.
Which one are you?
Right. We're like, I actually don't want to know. But, thank you. Yes, but I also think that, just to piggyback on what Ernie was saying, exactly that. We have a whole other community where we're reaching people that potentially won't listen to us on their radio, but they are a part of a community that they might not even listen to NPR. But they found us on a different medium, not necessarily that Houston Public Media is using this as a medium because we are a mission, but being able to meet people where they're at, I think has been exceptionally beneficial to our show.
And what's interesting is we have small cameras. They don't have lights that come on when you're on. So you just kind of assume they're always on.
Right.
And we're not punching them. So when I'm talking, I might be on the camera. It might be the three of us on the camera.
Yeah.
It might still be Celeste because she just said something. So I never really know. I don't really pay much attention to the cameras because I don't know when I'm on and not. I just try to smile and look pretty.
I don't think you should punch cameras in any.
Somebody said to me, which camera do you look at? Craig looks at the one in front. Which one do you look at? And I was like, I don't look at any of them. I'm looking at these two. I look at these two.
We're looking at each other. And that there's a little bit of a double-edged sword because there's been times where, you're on camera and sometimes you will make a face. You don't realize you're making it. And so it is very authentic.
Well, I swore off makeup when I retired from Channel 2.
This is what we look like, people.
I'm not wearing makeup. So that's why I pretend like I'm not even on camera anymore.
Ernie Manouse, Frank Billingsley, and Celeste Díaz Schurman are the hosts of Hello Houston. You can find the program on News 88.7 and on YouTube weekday mornings at 11. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Craig.
Thanks, Craig.
And just ahead, why so many who receive financial windfalls see the money slip away and what you can do to avoid the same fate. As Houston Matters continues.
Federal funding for public media has been cut. In response, we're creating Houston Public Media's Resiliency Fund. Donations made toward the fund will directly counter the loss of the $2.2 million in federal funds that were cut annually and strengthen our station's foundation to provide our services into the future. Contributing to this fund is easy and quick and makes all the difference to our station. Help build the Resiliency Fund now at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
Comes from CertaPro Painters, offering residential and commercial painting services, from color consultations to full project management. Estimates and more at CertaPro.com.
Support comes from Lynn Yeldell, owner of 7th Scout, a woman and LGBT-owned marketing agency helping businesses grow through strategy, websites, storytelling, and design. More at 7thscout.com. Be nice. Make better.
Houston Matters with Craig Cohen is made possible in part by Ellen Binnenhoven and Dr. Michael Schaefer, and with gifts from listeners like you.
This is Houston Matters. I'm Craig Cohen. While many of us dream of winning millions of dollars in the lottery, the odds say we will not. Many of us will, though, at some point in our lives, receive some sort of unexpected windfall. Could be a promotion or a raise at work, an inheritance from a relative, a number of things, some tidy sum of some kind that we just weren't counting on. Since a fool and his money are soon parted, and you are not a fool, I'm sure you're prepared to handle the moment, but maybe a little bit of guidance now, some advice you can hold on to for that unexpected future windfall is in order. Here to provide that is Houston-based Juan Hernandez Ariano. He's a certified financial planner and the director of WealthCreate Financial. Juan, welcome back to the program.
Thank you, Craig, for having me.
And we welcome any questions or comments you have about how to make smart choices with an unexpected bit of cash at talk@houstonmatters.org. Call or text 713-440-8870. You can post on our video feed on Houston Public Media's YouTube channel. All right, so what are some other examples of the kinds of unexpected financial windfalls Houstonians might experience throughout their lives?
So there are the commons and the non-common ones. The most common ones, of course, is inheritance, or perhaps if you, have an accident or something happens, some kind of settlement, you end up receiving some large sum of money. The most uncommon ones, the ones that we rarely see, are lottery, right? Which are the ones that we typically bank on and we dream about and whatnot, and we think we have a plan to execute upon whenever that happens. Well, that's debatable, right?
Yeah, what is the first step? Whether we're talking about a lottery win, as extreme and rare as that is, or just you are about to receive a pile of money you were not expecting. We could be talking about, in some cases, we're talking maybe a few $100s, in some cases many thousands of dollars, some maybe even in hundreds of thousands of dollars or more. I mean, it's all over the place. But what are the first things you should do?
So it comes down to three things, and we call it the 3 Ps. Pause, plan, and protect. Ideally, someone that is about to receive a large sum of money should never be making rush decisions. Should sleep on it at least for a few nights, right? At least for a few months. Don't make life-changing decisions. Don't do anything that is not reversible, right? And then with that, you, of course, because there's a lot of emotional component with receiving money, right? Initially, it's like a grieving process, but in reverse. You get excited and you all of a sudden, you're living a dream because you're receiving a large sum of money that you always dreamed about. Then, of course, the guilt kicks in, right? And then you have your family, your friends that start influencing your decisions, and then you don't recognize yourself anymore. That's when mistakes are happening.
What's the biggest mistake that you most often see?
Listening to your wife? No.
oh boy. Things just took a turn.
No, the biggest mistake we see is we start spending without a proper plan. That's the biggest mistake, because when you see a large sum in your bank, we automatically think it's unlimited resources, and that money can be spent a lot faster than we think it does.
Well, I guess there's another step in all of this, or I assume there is, which is if we're talking about a decently large sum of money, aren't there options other than it showing up in your bank account?
Correct. So there's typically, of course, you get paid a lump sum, but there's also an annuity option where you get a stream of payment for the rest of your life or for X amount of years. Typically, people that receive the second option end up with more money than people that receive the large sum of money. There's some statistic out there. I don't know how credible they are, but they say that 1 in 3 people go bankrupt within 3 to 5 years after receiving a large sum of cash.
That would seem surprising just because usually when you're talking about annuities, you're talking about a percentage return that's smaller in terms of the interest that you can accrue over that time than it would be if you just invested it relatively conservatively.
Yeah, correct. On paper, yeah, absolutely right. The issue is the emotional component of making the decision of, you know what, I'm going to be responsible with this large chunk of cash and invest it. The emotional component that takes us from point A to point B in that instance is really hard to bridge.
Is there a certain percentage that you recommend? Again, we're not necessarily talking about the amount of money here because for one person, $1,000 could be a huge windfall.
Yeah.
For somebody else, $10,000 may not be so much. But whatever the amount is, do you recommend that a certain percentage of it should automatically be invested, a certain percentage automatically saved for retirement, a certain percentage for this or that or the other thing?
We typically believe in the 3 to 4 bucket strategy, right? Now, it doesn't mean that it should always work like that. The main principle, the main foundation of everything is what do you want? What are your main needs? What are your main expenses? What are your biggest expenses? What do you believe in? I mean, of course, there's a lot of charity included in there. There's a lot of course, legacy as well in that conversation too. But typically 3 to 4 buckets. Initially, the first bucket will be your immediate needs bucket, the thing that pays for your expenses for the next 3 to 4 years. And ideally, you want that to be very conservative. Treasury bills, cash, money market accounts, something that doesn't really bear a whole lot of risk. The second bucket is going to be the intermediate funds, which will fund expenses between 4 to 10 years, ideally, right? Not super risky, right? I mean, everyone knows that every 10 years, there's 2 to 3 market corrections. So, I mean, you know that in that money, at least you'll go through one full market fluctuation, right? It can be a little bit more exposed to the market, but not crazy. And then the third bucket, which will be the longest term, if it's someone that is young enough, should bear a lot more risk. Again, that's a template. Of course, everyone has different goals. Everyone has different ideals. Everyone has different things that they believe in. And that's the first thing to understand.
A big question with sudden windfalls is how much of it is taxable. Does it matter how and where you receive that money?
It does. Big time, of course. And especially because especially that's true for whenever you receive it cash, lump sum. I mean, you're going to pay a good chunk of that money in taxes, which will wipe away a lot of the money, right? So people usually have plans on what to do with the money as a gross amount, and they disregard that there's a tax component that could eat like almost half of it, right? With the annuity, of course, you will pay taxes too. With the long-term payment, you also pay, but the tax liability is deferred because, of course, the payment to you is also deferred.
Some people might see a certain amount of money come in and think, well, what I want to do is make sure this is here for the next generation. How does a trust work?
So very simple. A trust is a legal document with a set of instructions that tells somewhat what to do with the money upon passing. That's the gist of it, right? I mean, there's multiple types of trusts. Is it the right ideal vehicle for everyone? It's not. Right. And I usually say, well, it is better to have a simple will executed than an unused trust. Right. There's different purposes for different trusts. In general, you can assemble these trusts to do whatever you want. Once again, they're not necessarily the best vehicle for everyone because they can be pricey. The important thing to do before building a trust and deciding that a trust is the right thing for you is, what does legacy mean to you? Right? Does it mean that you are going to give your children, your grandchildren, your relatives, your friends money? Does that mean you're going to give that money while you're alive, when you pass away? Or it's not money. Maybe you want to give them education. You want to pay for college expenses. Or not even that. You want to just focus on charitable events, right?
Well, I wanted to ask about that. Yeah. What can you do if you're in that situation where, let's say it's the lottery win, the extreme case, and millions of dollars are coming in. even once you account for whatever it is you want to spend now, whatever it is you want to set aside for the future, for future generations, if there's still money, or if you just are of the mind that whatever's coming in, you don't want to deal with it. You don't want your life to change at all, and you would rather change the lives of others and make their lives better. What advice do you offer for somebody that wants to do significant charitable giving?
Yeah. So the first thing will be, again, to pause, right? Because, again, emotions, right? Ideally, let it settle for a couple months before deciding where you're going to be giving the money to, right? If it's someone that is charitable inclined, of course, there's a lot of trust. There's donor advice funds where you, as a donor, you decide what to do with the money, right? And you can even pull back a little bit of the core of that account and use it for your own purpose. I mean, there's a lot of things you can do. Some of them will give you some really good tax breaks. Inevitably, if you have a large sum of money and you are charitably inclined, the first thing to do is, of course, visit an attorney, right? It's not one of those things that you can DIY on your own because, of course, there's a lot of components. And again, those trusts, if you are charitably inclined, you can get some really good tax breaks out of them.
I want to talk about a different definition of the word trust, because you just raised the specter of you may need to, depending on the circumstances, go to a professional who is licensed to handle whatever it is you want done. How do you determine who to trust when it comes to financial planning, when it comes to legal matters, when it comes to all of this? If you're suddenly faced with a lot of extra money, there are a lot of people out there that want to figure out a way to extricate you from that money to their benefit.
That is really true. The first thing is, of course, you're going to start receiving unsolicited advice from a lot of people, a lot of referrals, right? The first thing is, of course, an easy, straightforward Google search goes a long way. Make sure, for example, if it's a financial professional, that they're clean, that they have license, that they're fiduciary. That means that they're obligated to recommend things that are on your best interest. Typically, some of the best designations are CFP, someone with a Series 65, someone with a Series 66. They typically have the duty of recommending you things that are on your best interest. If they're attorneys, with attorneys is a lot easier because, of course, they're heavily regulated by their state bars. And there's websites like avo.com that rank them, give ratings, and they disclose most of the information that that attorney has to offer, their specialty. Of course, there's a lot of subspecialties, especially within the law field, that may make it a good fit or not. What you want to look for is someone that is specialized in estate planning.
All right. So bottom line, though, is let's all hope, anybody listening right now, hope you come into a nice chunk of change one of these days. And when you do, you figure out a way to deal with it in a way that benefits you.
Yep.
Juan Hernandez Ariano is a certified financial planner and the director of WealthCreate Financial. Juan, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me, Craig.
Still to come, the Astros missed the playoffs while the Texans shut out the Titans. We'll discuss both. Stay with us as Houston Matters continues.
Hello, I'm Josh Adams, General Manager of Houston Public Media. This station just lost $2.2 million in federal support annually. To keep our station strong, we've launched the Resiliency Fund, powered by community members just like you. Your support will help bridge the funding gap and ensure these programs remain free and accessible to everyone. If public media and this station matter to you, now is the time to act. Support the Resiliency Fund today at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
Grambling started me to opening up concerts. From there and getting that experience, I met the man that I married. I went back to Grambling again. And while I was there, I fell off and wanted to be a mother a little bit more so than the music industry. But the marriage failed. I moved back to New Orleans. And at that point, a year later to the date that I moved there and rebuilt my life, Katrina hit. When Katrina hit, I packed up everything that I could in my car, drove to Houston because I had a show to do, did the show, came back, put my car at the airport, and that's when I realized you have nowhere to go. Stayed in that car for a couple of weeks trying to figure out what my next move was going to be, and I got a call from a friend of mine that Christina Aguilera needed someone. I had enough money after doing that one show with Christina Aguilera to get a place, to get a mattress, start over. If you can get Houston to play your music, all of the other stations are going to follow. But now living here for 11 years, coming here through a hurricane, I was able to turn everything around. I am living in a better situation. I want to say thank you to this wonderful station, and I am very grateful. This is Mary Griffin. You can find me at marygriffin.com, and you're listening to Houston Matters.
Support comes from Berkman International, providing insights into workplace dynamics and individual needs to help organizations develop talent, improve communication, strengthen retention, and drive innovation. More at berkman.com/connect.
Support comes from Gen Pro, a Houston-based home generator service providing power to homes during unexpected outages, helping with connectivity and productivity. More information is available at genpro.com.
Support comes from Genesis Works Houston, connecting young professionals to real-world career experiences and hosting the 7th Annual Ambassadors Luncheon, Thursday, October 9th. More at ambassadorsluncheonhou.org/event.
Support comes from the Welcome Group and Welcome Wilson Jr., President and CEO. With over 9 million square feet of manufacturing and industrial facilities in over 130 locations in Texas and the Southeast. More at welcomegroup.com.
The Houston Astros season came to an end on Sunday. The Stros missed the playoffs by one game, and for the first time in 9 seasons, while the club evaluates what went right and wrong in an 87-75 campaign, there's a key question looming. Why were they once again overwhelmed this year with injuries? Let's discuss now with Bleav in Astros podcast co-host Jeff Balke. Hi, Jeff.
Good morning, Craig.
According to SpotTrack, in the 5 seasons from 2016 to 2020, the Astros averaged 14.6 injuries per year. From 2021 to 2025, the next 5 years, they averaged 21. That is a 44% increase. Again, according to SpotTrack, the Astros had 26 injured players this season. That's the size of an entire roster, essentially. And these were not brief injuries. They averaged 92.5 days on the injured list. Aren't you impressed with my math here?
That's pretty good.
What's causing this?
I wish anyone could tell you. But, I mean, I will say that part of that, when you think about the era of that first batch from 2016 to 2020, I mean, we're talking about the players were much younger. I mean, that's part of it. Jose Altuve is 35 years old now. So there is an aging factor that has certainly been part of that equation with a lot of this era of the Astros getting older. I think you've certainly added some injury-prone athletes into this mix. Yordan Alvarez was not part of that initial group, and certainly he has been someone that has missed a lot of time. You've also got a guy like Lance McCullers who, you know, has got an extension from the Astros despite the fact that he's spent most of it injured. So I think there are some caveats there. But I do think the big concern in this offseason, if the Astros are going to really look in the mirror as the sports cliche goes, one of the things they really do need to look at is what's going on with their development in terms of, are they pushing guys too hard, particularly pitchers, and their return to play protocols that have, we've seen at least a couple times this year. Guys come back and then immediately go back out again. And so I think that there's been certainly some bad luck this year in particular. I mean, Spencer Arrighetti getting hit in the hand during batting practice, or Yordan Alvarez rolling his ankle on home plate. Those are kind of odd, Isaac Paredes straining a hamstring. Those are odd ones. But when you look at all of the pitchers that have gone out with elbow injuries, multiple guys with Tommy John surgery, including a young player like Brandon Walter, you definitely have to start evaluating what is happening with you early on in that process when players are first getting to you, and what's happening and how do you protect them going forward.
So is that training? Is that development? Is it a game that rewards max effort?
Yeah, well,
maybe at players' long-term physical expense?
Yeah. So Mike Stanton, my co-host on the Bleav in Astros podcast, who is a former pitcher himself, he trains young pitchers, and he is always saying, listen, this starts at a young age. These kids are trying to throw fastballs and curveballs with a ton of spin rate on it when they're 11, 12, 13 years old. Kids are getting Tommy John surgery in high school. I mean, this is this is part and parcel. This is a product of the generation of players we're raising in a way that is pushing them harder and farther than maybe their bodies are meant to go.
Is some of it also, you noted that the roster's a little bit older now than certainly it was 5 years ago. Is this an indication that the decade of dominance is ending?
I think there's no question that the decade of expecting the Astros to be in the ALCS every year, or in the World Series every year, that we should have assumed that was going to be over last year, this year. That's just part of aging. It's part of the changing roster. It's part of starting to think about having to retool a roster that not only is aging, but is also, a little awkward. We've had to, fill in a lot of spaces. When the Astros were first winning, when they won in 2017, and during that first era, a lot of those players were homegrown. They brought in some, certainly Justin Verlander chief among them. But for the most part, the Astros were loaded with a lot of young talent. A lot of that young talent is now gone. And so now they have to start thinking about where they're going to rebuild from. That takes time.
Astros GM Dana Brown has some interesting decisions to make. Among them, maybe at the top of the list, is whether or not to re-sign Framber Valdez.
I don't think they're going to re-sign Framber Valdez. I don't think you can, because the kind of money that he's going to want and the amount of money the Astros are already spending, I just don't see that happening this offseason. He's going to want a bunch of money. He's faltered now 2 straight years in the second half of seasons. He is not as reliable as he once was. I think, honestly, the more interesting offseason decision is what they're going to do about their infield. Are they going to be able to justify keeping Christian Walker in this lineup when you've got Isaac Paredes, who could very easily play first base, when you've got Carlos Correa now at third? How do you make decisions about the best long-term future of the team on an infield that's going to be crowded? I mean, Jose Altuve is probably going to play a lot more second base next year than he did, as much as he did this year. Certainly the left field experiment is probably going to end. So how do you balance all that with designated hitter and Yordan and everybody else? I think he's got a lot of issues that he's going to have to tangle with this offseason.
Is it a question of maybe too many choices, and you need to take current players who have been on the roster with the caveat, the hope that the number of injuries reduces a little bit, and just decide yes on this, no on this, yes to this player, no to that player?
Not in pitching. In pitching, you want everybody you can possibly get. It's all hands on deck when it comes to pitching, because people just lose so many pitchers throughout the season. We saw this not just with the Astros, but with the Dodgers and a few other teams. But with position players, I do think you have to pick. Listen, Bryce Matthews just came up, hit a home run the other day. He is their heir apparent at second base. He's a very talented young player. So you're not going to be able to keep him out forever. You're not going to be able to keep guys like Jacob Melton out forever and Zach DeZenzo. Now we have Zach Cole on that radar. There's a lot of young talent that the Astros are going to need to leverage in whatever they're going to do to try and turn this thing around. I know Jim Crane is fond of saying, as long as I'm owner, we'll always be in contention. Well, sometimes you need to take a step back in order to take a step forward.
Okay, let's shift gears and talk about the Texans, who won their first game of the season Sunday, 26-0 over the now 0-4 Tennessee Titans. It is the Texans' first shutout since 2010. You can only play the team who's on the schedule.
Wild.
Yeah, I didn't believe it. 15 years. Amazing. Well, then again, you think about football, it's pretty hard to pull off shutouts in football. Yeah. Okay, but they've played the Titans, who are obviously woeful, maybe is an understatement so far. Did they meet them at just the right time?
Yes, absolutely. Sometimes you need fate to intervene when you're struggling, and in this case, fate came in the form of a really terrible Titans team. Titans made a lot of mistakes. They did a lot of things wrong. So we can't give all the credit to the Texans, but I do think there were some promising, if you watched the broadcast yesterday, I think they said the word signs about 10,000 times, but there were some promising moments in that game. The fact that C.J. Stroud was able to air it out downfield a couple of times, the fact that you saw the defense getting to the quarterback repeatedly. The fact that you saw some turnovers generated, that's positive. Now, again, you temper that with the fact that they were playing probably the worst team in football, but nevertheless.
Yeah, and particularly on that first point with C.J. Stroud being able to throw the ball downfield.
Mm-hmm.
Now, first of all, it is a credit to the offensive line to offer a little bit better protection than we've seen in the first few weeks. Certainly.
That's right. Yes, although the Titans only had 3 sacks so far this year, so there is that.
And for whatever reason, their secondary seemed more than happy to just let sometimes the best receiver on the field just go ahead and you go ahead and run out there all by yourself. It's fine.
2nd and 33 and you get 37 yards. I mean, it's just
exactly.
There were, like I said, a lot of mistakes made. I will say one other real positive that we saw yesterday was the emergence of Woody Marks at running back. This rookie, everybody has said since training camp that he has better explosiveness. He has better sort of, as Sean Pendergast, my colleague at the Houston Press, described it, better wiggle than a lot of these guys. The other thing about Woody Marks is he is a legitimate pass-catching threat. You know, he had a touchdown running and a touchdown catching. He caught 5 passes.
He also put on a couple of very impressive blocks,
yes,
which you need.
Absolutely.
Helping out this offensive line,
yes,
particularly for a Texans team that, if I think I've got this right, I don't think they had a fullback in the lineup yesterday.
They had British Brooks in briefly, but their main fullback, the guy Johnson, he went down last week.
Yeah.
So British Brooks is sort of what you would think of as more of an H-back type. But, yeah, they were lining up tight ends in the backfield on multiple occasions. I think the thing that you saw from the Texans yesterday, one thing is they kept getting into 3rd and short, which is something they just haven't done all season long. They got the ball in the end zone, which is something they just haven't done. They were averaging 14 points a game.
Though, again, also not till the second half,
right,
and technically not till the 4th quarter.
Right.
So they didn't get to the red zone until the 4th quarter.
Right. We don't know exactly what this Texans team is going to be. We know defensively they're going to be pretty good, if not very good. Offensively, we just don't really know because we cannot gauge based on the running game and based on the pass protection. I do think the one thing that I saw that was encouraging to me was C.J. Stroud for the first time didn't look like he was in a bad mood while he was throwing the ball. He looked like he looked happy for a moment, and that's something that's not to be discounted because this is a team that you can't afford to have your best player, one of your best players on the field, be angry about the fact that the team's not playing well.
Before we leave behind Woody Marks, he had more than 100 yards combined running and receiving. He and Nick Chubb combined for more than 100 yards rushing.
Yeah.
This suggests that if they can get anything close to that kind of production when Joe Mixon's back in the lineup.
When, if those are the big questions. I think they would love to have Joe Mixon back, but the fact that they haven't even discussed whether he would return or not, given the fact, actually, they've said more about what Tank Dell's recovery has been than Joe Mixon's. Tank Dell's out doing sprints and stuff like that. There's a chance he could be back this season. They haven't whispered a word about Joe Mixon yet, which doesn't bode well. But listen, Joe Mixon is not the long-term solution for this team. Woody Marks is a guy that I think they might be able to rely on if they can block for him and if they can get him out in open space with the ball where he is really good.
Wasn't that also what they were thinking with Pierce? Don't we see that where guys will have flashes of, wow, they look like they're the next great running back, and then it just doesn't really happen?
I think the difference here between Pierce and Marks is more of a wide skill set running back. Pierce was more of a straight ahead runner. Woody Marks is a guy that can play. He can play out in the field. He can run routes. He's obviously a better blocker than Pierce was. He has a bit of a pedigree. He was good in college, right, at USC. So I think I'm not saying he's going to turn out to be Arian Foster Part 2 or anything like that. I'm saying that anything they get at this point from a running game that's been incredibly anemic is a good thing, and Woody Marks would seem to be their best option right now.
I guess one other thing to mention before we wrap up is that they did make a change in who was calling plays yesterday. So the Texans head coach is not calling the defense.
Yes, that is.
What was the thinking there by D'Amico Ryans?
It's a good question. I think part of it might be so he can put his eye on the entire game, and to make his stamp. I think that might be more indicative of a concern over Nick Caley on offense than it is a concern over D'Amico Ryans calling the defensive plays. I think, look, D'Amico Ryans is still a young coach. He's still, I think, kind of figuring things out as he goes. And this may just be an instance of him saying, I need to delegate more so I can spread out my focus to a wider bunch of the players and coaches on this team.
Jeff Balke writes for the Houston Press and co-hosts the Bleav in Astros podcast. Jeff, thank you very much.
Thanks, Craig.
And that will do it for today's show. The Houston Matters team includes Michael Haggerty, Joshua Zinn, Brenda Valdivia, Mincho Jacob, and Laura Walker. Jared Carroll's our technical director. On tomorrow's show, the new film The Long Walk takes endurance athletics to a horrific level. But some Houstonians walk or run long distances without their lives being on the line to motivate them. Joshua Zinn talks with one on this month's The Bigger Picture. Plus, Brenda Valdivia takes us to Galveston's East Beach, site of a recent sandcastle competition. I'm Craig Cohen. Join us tomorrow for those and other Houston Matters.
Kevin Coolish and Beverly McPhail proudly support Houston